Assalamu alaikum, students. I'm Dr. Amjad Bukhari, your teacher, and we are studying the subject Government and Society in Pakistan. In previous lectures, we studied about the society, then we tried to understand the basis of the society, the component of the society, and after that, we tried to understand and observe the Pakistani society, on which footings this society is established and how it is working. And then we tried to understand the struggle for Pakistan, the movement for Pakistan, and in last lectures we briefly studied that how the movement for Pakistan was initiated and a new state was emerged in 1947. So in this lecture, we tried to understand the early period of a new state, and we tried to understand that what the problems were established at that time, and how the political and military leadership tried to resolve the issues and tackle the matters and the hindrances that developed at that time. So, in the last lectures, we were at the early period of emergence of Pakistan, and we studied that after the emergence of Pakistan in 1947, only 13 months after Pakistan independence, Muhammad Ali Jinnah got his life, and he died in September 1948. محمد علی جناح, جن کو ہم قائد اعظم کے نام سے جانتے ہیں, ان کی پرسنالٹی جو ہے وہ بڑی ڈائنامک تھی, اینڈ اٹ سسٹینڈ دا کنٹری ڈیورنگ دوز ڈیفیکلٹ منتھس. ایسی پرسنالٹی تھی جو صرف ایک عام لیڈرشپ نہیں تھی, بلکہ ایک ڈیسیژن میکر کی لیڈرشپ تھی. ٹھیک ہے, وہیں سے ڈیسیژن میکنگ ہوتی تھی. ان کی کوئی سیریمونیل پوزیشن نہیں تھی, بلکہ پاکستان کے تمام معاملات میں ان کی طرف دیکھا جاتا تھا اور ان کی رائے کو فیصلہ سمجھا جاتا تھا اور حتمی شکل دی جاتی تھی. سو قائد اعظم نے ہی پاکستان کی تشکیل میں بڑا کردار ادا کیا. ان کی محنت جدوجہد کے نتیجے میں پاکستان بنا, اور ہم نے اس موومنٹ کو بریفلی دیکھا. لیکن جب پاکستان بن گیا تو قائد اعظم کو صحت کے شدید مشکلات کا سامنا کرنا پڑا, اور وہ بیمار ہو گئے, اور وہ ان کو پھر حکومتی معاملات سے جو ہے وہ دور ہونا پڑا, اور پھر وہ اس جہان فانی سے رخصت ہو گئے. تو پاکستان جو ایک نئی مملکت کے طور پر ابھرا تھا, اس کو مزید مشکلات کا سامنا کرنا پڑا اور مشکلات میں گھر گیا. آفٹر دی ڈیتھ آف محمد علی جناح, ایک پاور ویکیوم جو ہے وہ اچانک کریٹ ہو گیا, کہ ان کے ہوتے ہوئے یہ نہیں سوچا جا رہا تھا کہ جی ان کے متبادل لیڈرشپ جو ہے وہ سوچ کے رکھی جائے, بنا کے رکھی جائے. یہ پاسبل بھی نہیں تھا ان کی شخصیت کے سامنے ایسا کچھ ہو سکتا. تو خواجہ ناظم الدین جو چیف منسٹر تھے ایسٹ بنگال کے, واز کالڈ آن ٹو ٹیک اپ دا آفس آف دا گورنر جنرل. اور جو خواجہ ناظم الدین ہیں, انہوں نے جو ہے ان کے سامنے جو پرائم منسٹر تھے لیاقت علی خان, وہ ایک ڈومیننٹ پرسنالٹی تھے اس وقت, کیونکہ قائد اعظم محمد علی جناح جو ہے وہ گورنر جنرل تھے, تو ان کی جگہ پر جو ہے وہ خواجہ ناظم الدین آئے. تو وہ جو لیاقت علی خان کی جو شخصیت تھی پرائم منسٹر کے طور پر, وہ زیادہ ابھر کر سامنے آ گئی. اور کو ان دونوں شخصیات میں کوئی بھی جو ہے وہ قائد اعظم محمد علی جناح کی پوزیشن جو ہے وہ ہولڈ نہیں کر سکتا تھا. ان کی پوزیشن جو ہے وہ نسبتاً جو ہے وہ اتنی اسٹرانگ نہیں تھی. لیکن ظاہر ہے کہ ایک نیا گیپ پیدا ہوا اور ایک ایشو پیدا ہوا. اس وقت جو ہے یہ ایسے حالات تھے کہ پاکستان کے پاس جو ہے وہ کانسٹیٹیوشن بھی نہیں تھا اور آئین کی تشکیل کا مرحلہ بھی جو ہے ابھی شروع نہیں ہوا تھا. بٹ لیاقت علی خان واز ایگر ٹو گیو دا کنٹری اے نیو کانسٹیٹیوشن. But such an undertaking was delayed by controversy, particularly over the distribution of provincial powers and over representations. Although what had been East Bengal and became East Pakistan contained the majority of Pakistan's population, the Punjab nevertheless judged itself the more significant of the Pakistani province. اس وقت جو ہے یہ ایک ایشو ابھرا کہ جو ہے اگر ایسٹ بنگال میں جو ہے وہ جس کے بعد میں بنگلہ دیش بنا، مشرقی پاکستان بنا اور پھر بنگلہ دیش بنا، تو وہاں پر جو ہے پاپولیشن کا جو ہے ایک معاملہ جو ہے زیادہ پاپولیشن کا وہ سامنے آ رہا تھا. وہ ریپرزنٹیشنس دینے کا حوالے سے جو باتیں تھیں وہ بڑی امپورٹنٹ تھیں کہ اس کو کیا حیثیت دی جائے اور کس طرح جو ہے آگے لے کر چلا جائے. لیاقت علی Khan engaged in a number of public speaking engagements, and it was such a meeting in Rawalpindi in October 1951 that he was killed by a person's with a bullet. تو ابھی یہ مراحل جو ہے طے نہیں ہو پائے تھے اور قوم جو ہے وہ قائد اعظم محمد علی جناح کی وفات کے صدمے سے نہیں نکل پائی تھی اور ان کی وفات سے ریاست کو پہنچنے والے دھچکے سے باہر نہیں نکل پائی تھی کہ لیاقت علی خان کو بھی جو ہے وہ قتل کر دیا گیا اور قوم ایک اور بڑے لیڈر سے محروم ہو گئی. تو ایک بڑا لیڈرشپ کا گیپ جو ہے وہ پاکستان کے بنتے وقت ہی پیدا ہو گیا، جس نے آگے آنے والے دنوں میں مزید مسائل پیدا کیے اور پاکستان کو مشکلات میں جو ہے وہ گھیرے رکھا. پھر جو ہے وہ خواجہ ناظم الدین assumed the prime ministership after the death of Liaquat Ali Khan, and Ghulam Muhammad took his place as the Governor General. Ghulam Muhammad was a Punjabi and had been Jinnah's choice to serve as Pakistan's first finance minister and was an old and successful civil servant. Khwaja Nazimuddin, known for his piety and reserved natures, and Ghulam Muhammad, a staunch advocate of strong, efficient administration, was hardly fortuitous. Nazimuddin's assumptions of the office of prime ministers mean the country would have a weak head of government, and with Ghulam Muhammad as governor general, a strong head of state. تو ایک یہ بھی اس وقت جو ہے ایک صورتحال پیدا ہوئی اور پھر جو ہے 1953 riots erupted in the Punjab, supposedly over a demand by militant Muslim groups. You say مسلم مجاہدین کہ احمدیہ جماعت کو declared non-Muslims and that all members of the sect holding public office be dismissed. So at that time special attention was directed at Sir Muhammad Zafrullah Khan, or Khwaja Nazimuddin was held responsible for the disorder, especially for his inability to coalesce. And Ghulam Muhammad took the opportunity to dismiss the prime ministers and his government, although another Bengali, Muhammad Ali Bogra, replaced Khwaja Nazimuddin. There was no ignoring the fact that the viceregal tradition was continuing to dominate Pakistani political life, and that Ghulam Muhammad, the bureaucrat and never truly a politician with others like him, controls Pakistan destiny. تو ابتدا ہو گئی کہ جو سیاستدان تھے ان کو سائڈ لائن کیا جانے لگا اور جو ہے جو بیوروکریٹس تھے وہ حاوی ہونے لگے. In the meanwhile, in East Bengal, جو مشرقی پاکستان تھا, ایسٹ پاکستان تھا, considerable oppositions had developed against the Muslim League, which had managed the province since independence. This tension was capped in 1952 by a series of riots that sprang from a Muslim League attempt to make Urdu the only national language of Pakistan, although Bengali, the predominant language of the eastern sector, was spoken by a larger proportion of Pakistan's populations. The language riots galvanized the Bengalis and they rallied behind their more indigenous parties to thwart what they argued was an effort by the West Pakistanis, notably the Punjabis, to transform East Bengal into a distant subordinate. ایک صورتحال اس قسم کے اوپر آئی جس میں یہ فیل کیا جانے لگا کہ جی جہاں پنجاب کی ڈومینیشن ہو رہی ہے, پنجاب میں رہنے والوں کی ڈومینیشن ہو رہی ہے, اور ایسٹ پاکستان کو بنگالیز کو جو ہے وہ اپنی کالونی بنانے کی اور ماتحت کرنے کی کوشش ہو رہی ہے. In March 1954, the last in a series of provincial elections was held in East Bengal. The contest was between the Muslim League government and a united front of parties led by the Krishik Ceramic Party of Fazlul Haq and the Awami League of Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi, Mujibur Rahman and Maulana Bhashani. When the ballots were counted, the Muslim League had not only lost the election, it had been virtually eliminated as a viable political force in the province. Muslim League کو جو ہے وہ مشرقی پاکستان میں شکست ہوئی, بلکہ اس کا آلموسٹ صفایا ہو گیا مشرقی پاکستان. Fazlul Haq was given the opportunity to form the new provincial government in East Pakistan, Bengal, or East Pakistan, but before he could convince his cabinet, riots erupted in the south of the East Pakistan capital of Dhaka. The instability provided the central government with the opportunity to establish governor rules in the province and overturn the United Front's electoral victory. Sikandar Mirza, a civil servant, former defense secretary and minister in the central government, was sent to rule over the province until such time as stability could be assured. It is assumed that Sikandar Mirza had no intention of implementing the results of the elections, nor did he wish to install a new Muslim League government in East Pakistan. But the Muslim League's defeat and de facto elimination in the province necessitated realigning the Constituent Assembly, still grappling with the drafting of a national constitutions at the center. Before this could be done, however, the Constituent Assembly moved to curtail Ghulam Muhammad's viceregal powers. The Governor General's response to this parliamentary effort to undermine his authority was to dissolve that body and recognize the central government. The country's High Court cited the extraordinary powers of the Chief Executive and ruled not to reverse his actions. The court, however, insisted that another Constituent Assembly should be organized and that constitution making should not be interrupted. Ghulam Muhammad assembled a cabinet of talent that included major responsibilities such as Sikandar Mirza, General Muhammad Ayub Khan, the army chief at the time, and Hussain Shahid Sohrawardi, at that time the last chief minister of undivided Pakistan, and the only Bengali was the national with the national credentials. In 1955, the bureaucrats who now took control of what remained of the Muslim Leagues combined in 4 provinces of West Pakistan into the one administrative unit and argued of parity in any future national parliament between West Pakistan and East Pakistan. Ghulam Muhammad, by then seriously ill, was forced to relinquish his office, and Sikandar Mirza succeeded to the post of Governor General. In the meantime, a new Constituent Assembly was seated, and in 1956, that body, under new leadership, but still subject to the power of bureaucracy and now to the military as well, completed Pakistan's long-awaited constitutions using the parity formula that supposedly gave equal power to both wings of the country. So नतीजा यही निकला कि 1956 में जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाया गया उसमें पैरिटी का असूल अपना लिया गया कि दोनों विंग्स को, पाकिस्तान के जो दोनों हिस्सों थे, मशरकी पाकिस्तान और मगरबी पाकिस्तान, दोनों हिस्सों को मसावी बुनियादों पर हकूक और हिस्सा दिया गया. और जो मशरकी पाकिस्तान की आबादी की जो डोमिनेशन थी उसको इग्नोर किया गया था. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ 1956 embodied objectives regarding religions and politics that had been set out in the basic principles report established in 1950, one of which was to declare the country an Islamic republic. The national parliament was to comprise one house of 300 members equally representing East and West Pakistan. 10 additional seats were reserved for women, again with half coming from each region. The prime ministers and cabinet were to govern according to the will of the parliament, with the president exercising only reserved powers. Pakistan's first president was its last Governor General, Iskandar Mirza, but at no time did he consider bowing to the wishes of the parliament. Along with a close associate, Dr. Khan Sahib, a former premier of the Northwest Frontier Province, Mirza formed the Republican Party and made Khan Sahib the chief minister of the new province of West Pakistan. The Republican Party was assembled to represent the landed interest in West Pakistan, the basic source of all political power. Never an organized body, the Republican Party lacked an ideology or a platform and merely served the feudal interest in the West Pakistan. Mirza at that time made an alliance between the Republican Party and the East Pakistani Awami League and called on Hussain Shahid Suhrawardy to assume the office of the Prime Minister. But the character of the alliance between the two parties, as well as the distance between the major personalities, produced only short-lived associations. Hussain Shahid Suhrawardy suffered the same fate as his predecessors and was ousted from office by Mirza without a vote of confidence. Unable to sustain alliance or govern in accordance with the constitution, the central government mirrored the chaos in the province. This was especially true in East Pakistan, where even in the absence of the Muslim League, the different provincial parties, now further complicated by the formulation of the National Awami Party in 1957, struggle against forces that could not be reconciled. Pakistan was close to becoming unmanageable at that time. It seems that difficulties are rising and problems are multiplying, and management seems very difficult. The situations had become so grave that Khan Sahib circulated his idea that it was time to seize the political carrot and give all powers to a military government. तो ये इब्तदा हुई इस सोच की और पाकिस्तान में मिलिट्री गवर्नमेंट की. तो उस वक्त जो है वो फिर जो है वो मिलिट्री गवर्नमेंट किस तरह आई इन लाइट ऑफ सच dissent and with successions being voiced in different regions of the country, notably in East Pakistan and Northwest Frontier Province. On October 7, 1958, Mirza proclaimed the 1956 constitutions abrogated, closed the national and provincial assemblies, and banned all political party activity. Declared that the country was under martial law, and General Muhammad Ayub Khan had been made chief martial administrator at that time. Iskandar Mirza claimed that it was his intention to lift martial law as soon as possible, and that a new constitution would be drafted. And on October 27, he swore in a new cabinet, naming Ayub Khan's prime ministers, while three lieutenant generals were given ministerial posts. The eight civilian members in the cabinet included businessmen and lawyers, one being a young newcomer, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, a powerful landlord from Sindh province. Our Ayub Khan viewed his being named prime minister as the president's attempts to end his military career and ultimately to force him into oblivion. Clearly, the country could not afford two paramount rulers at the same time. Therefore, if one had to go, Ayub Khan decided that it should be Sikandar Mirza. On the evening of October 27, Ayub Khan, senior general, presented Mirza with an ultimatum of facing permanent exile or prosecutions by a military tribunal. Mirza immediately left for London, never again to return to Pakistan. Soon, therefore, Ayub Khan, who now assumed the rank of field marshals, proclaimed his assumptions of the presidency. So, martial law lasted 44 months. During that time, a number of army forces took over vital civil service posts. Many politicians were excluded from public life under an electoral body's disqualification order, जिसको एब्डो के नाम से पुकारा जाता है. एब्डो के जरिए जो है वो बहुत सारे सियासतदानों को जो है वो डिस्क्वालीफाई कर दिया गया है. Similar purge took place among civil servants. Yet Ayub Khan argued that Pakistan was not yet ready for a full-blown experiment in parliamentary democracy and that the country required a period of tutelage and honest government before a new constitution system could be established. मुराद ये है कि अयूब खान का कहना था कि पाकिस्तान जो है अभी तक जो है वो एक पार्लियामेंट्री टाइप ऑफ गवर्नमेंट के लिए, डेमोक्रेसी के लिए तैयार नहीं हुआ. यहाँ इसके लिए एक तरबियत का अमल चाहिए और इससे गुजारने के बाद जो है यहाँ पर पार्लियामेंट्री फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट जो है वो नाफिज होना चाहिए. देयरफॉर इनिशिएटेड ए प्लान फॉर बेसिक डेमोक्रेसीज. और इसी के लिए ना वो बुनियादी जमहूरियत का निज़ाम जो है उसने डिज़ाइन किया, कंसिस्टिंग ऑफ रूरल एंड अर्बन काउंसिल्स directly elected by the people that would be concerned with local governments and would assist in programs for grassroots development. Election took place in January 1960 and the basic Democrats, as they become known, were at once asked to endorse and thus legitimate Ayub Khan's presidency. Of the 80,000 basic Democrats at that time, 75,000, more than 75,000 affirmed their support. Basic democracies was a tiered systems linked to the bureaucracy, and the basic democrats occupied the lowest rung of a ladder that was connected to the country's administrative sub-districts, tehsil, districts and divisions. At that time, it was soon clear that the real power in the system resided in the bureaucrats who had dominated decision making since colonial times. Nevertheless, the basic democracy systems was linked to a public works programs that was sponsored by the United States. The combined effort was meant to confer responsibility for village and municipal developments to the local population. Self-reliance was watchword of the overall program, and Ayub Khan and his advisors, as well as important donors countries, believed the arrangements would provide material benefits and possibly even expose people to self-governed experience. Ayub Khan also established a constitutional commission to advise on a form of government more appropriate to the country's political culture, and his regime introduced a number of reforms. Not the least of these was the Muslim Family Law Ordinance of 1961, which restricted so many things and provided more rights and protection for women. He also authorized the development of family planning programs that were aimed at tackling the dilemma of Pakistan's growing population. Such actions angered the more religious members of the society, also swelled the rank of the oppositions. under pressure to make amends and to placate the guardians of Islamic traditions, the family planning program was eventually scrapped. An important features of the Ayub Khan's regime was the quickening pace of economic growth. During the initial phase of independence, the annual growth rate was less than 3%, and that was scarcely ahead of the rate of population's growth. Just prior to the military coup, the rate of growth was even smaller. During the Ayub Khan's era, with assistance from external sources, notably the United States, the country accelerated economic growth, and by 1965, it had been advanced to more than 6% per annum. Development was particularly vigorous in the manufacturing sector, but considerably attention was also given to agriculture. US assistance was especially prominent in combating waterlogging and salinity problems that resulted from irrigation in the more vital growing zones. Moreover, plans were implemented that launched the Green Revolution in Pakistan, and new hybrid wheats and rice varieties were introduced with the goal of increasing yields. Despite positive economic development overall, most investment was directed towards West Pakistan, and the division between East and West grew during the period. Ayub Khan attempted to answer East Pakistan's fear of becoming second-class citizens when, after work was begun at his order on building a new Pakistan's capital at Islamabad, he declared it was his intention to build a second legislative capital near Dhaka in East Pakistan. However, the start of construction of the new second capital did not please the East Pakistani peoples, who were angered by Ayub Khan's abrogation of the 1956 constitution, his failure to hold national elections, and the decision to sustain martial law. In 1962, Ayub Khan promulgated another constitution, presidential rather than parliamentary in focus. It was based on the indirectly elected president and a reinforced centralized political systems that emphasized the country's viceregal traditions. Although Ayub anticipated launching the new political system without political parties, once the National Assembly was convened and martial law was lifted, it was apparent that political parties would be reactivated. Ayub therefore formed his own party, the Conventional Muslim League at that time, but the country's political life and its struggle were little different from the days before martial law. After a big struggle, Ayub Khan won another formal term as president of Pakistan in January 1965, and in which only the basic Democrats cast ballots. It was not the voting of every person, and opposed by Fatma Jinnah, the sister of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Jinnah, who ran on a combined opposition parties tickets. The contest was closer than expected. During the elections campaigns, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the foreign minister, was supposedly a loyal member of the Ayub Khan's cabinet, promised in a public address that the conflict over Kashmir would be resolved during Ayub Khan's presidency. Bhutto indicated that Kashmiris would be released from Indian occupations by negotiations, or if that failed, by armed force. But there was little indication that Ayub Khan had sanctioned Bhutto's pronouncement. Nevertheless, the foreign minister's speech appeared to be both solace to the pro-Kashmiri interests in West Pakistan and a green light to the Pakistan forces to begin making plans for a campaign in the disputed region. A new war over Kashmir was not long in coming, and between India and Pakistan, war started in 1965, and by September, major hostilities had erupted between the two neighbors, and this matter was again taken up by the United Nations, and ultimately Ayub Khan was forced to accept a United Nations sponsored ceasefire and to give Pakistan's quest for resolving the Kashmir problem by force of arms. Ayub Khan saw all his efforts at building a new Pakistan dashed in one venture, and he was compelled to attend a peace conference with the Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. In that meeting, the two leaders were unable to reach a satisfactory agreement of their own making, and their host compelled them to sign a draft prepared for them. It was called. At that time, Bhutto, who had accompanied Ayub Khan to the conference, indicated a desire to separate himself from his mentor. Ayub Khan's popularity had reached its lowest level, and in the Pakistani politics, he was getting declining. Bhutto anticipated the situation and Bhutto held up his resignations, but soon after he broke with the president, joined his voice to the opposition, and in due course organized his own political party, the Pakistan People's Party. Ayub Khan was never the same after signing the Tashkent Agreement, confronted by raising oppositions that was now led by Bhuttos in West Pakistan and Mujibur Rahman in East Pakistan. Ayub Khan struck back by taking bold decisions, acknowledging that he could not manage the country without a modicum of cooperation from the politicians. So Ayub Khan summoned a conference of opposition leaders and withdrew the state of emergency under which Pakistan had been governed since 1965. These concessions, however, failed to conciliate the opposition, and in February 1969, Ayub announced that he would not contest the presidential election scheduled for 1970. In the meantime, protests mounted in the streets and strikes paralyzed the economy. In March 1969, Ayub Khan announced his retirement and named General Muhammad Yahya Khan to succeed him as president. Once again, the country was placed under martial law. Yahya Khan, like Ayub Khan before him, assumed the role of chief martial administrator. In accepting the responsibility for leading the country, Yahya Khan said he would govern Pakistan only until the national election in 1970. Yahya Khan abolished Ayub Khan's basic democracy systems and abrogated 1962 constitutions. He also issued a legal framework order, इसको हम LFO कहते हैं, that broke up the single unit of West Pakistan and reconstituted the original 4 provinces of Pakistan: Punjab, Sindh, North Western Frontier Province, and Balochistan. In the 1970 election, therefore, was not only meant to restore the parliamentary government to the country, it was also intended to re-establish the provincial political systems. The major dilemma in the LFO, however, was that in breaking up the one-unit system, the distribution of seats in the National Assembly would be appropriated and apportioned among the provinces and the basis of population. This meant that East Pakistan, with its larger populations, would be allotted more seats than all the provinces of the West Pakistan combined. So, यहाँ तक हमने देखा कि पाकिस्तान के बनने के बाद जो है मजमूई तौर पर वो कौन सी फोर्सेस थी जो इक़्तिदार में आई, किस तरह फिर जो है वो ब्यूरोक्रेसी जो है वो इक़्तिदार पर छाई और पॉलिटिकल फोर्सेस को पीछे किया. फिर मिलिट्री ब्यूरोक्रेसी का जो है एक निज़ाम हुकूमत आया जिसमें जो है पॉलिटिशियंस और पीछे चले गए, बुनियादी जमहूरी निज़ाम मुतारफ़ कराया गया और बहुत सारे लोगों पर एबडो के ज़रिए जो है वो कदगन लगा दी गई और वो सियासत से बाहर हो गए. और फिर अयूब खान का एक तवील मिलिट्री गवर्नमेंट थी जिसमें ईस्ट पाकिस्तान और वेस्ट पाकिस्तान जो है उनके दरमियान क्या पॉलिटिकल ताल्लुकात रहे. फिर अयूब खान ने किस तरह ख़ुद को जो है वो चीफ मार्शल एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर और प्रेसिडेंट बनवाया और फिर उसको कंटिन्यू किया और मोहतरमा फातिमा जना के खिलाफ इलेक्शन लड़ा और फातिमा जना और उन दोनों ने एक दूसरे के खिलाफ इलेक्शन लड़ा اور پھر کس طرح 1965 کی وار ہوئی، اور پھر 65 کی وار کے بعد پاکستان اور بھارت کے درمیان جو ہے وہ ایگریمنٹ ہوا، اور اس ایگریمنٹ پر کس طرح ذوالفقار علی بھٹو جو اس وقت وزیر خارجہ تھے، انہوں نے ایوب خان کی حکومت سے استعفیٰ دے کر اپوزیشن میں شمولیت اختیار کی، پھر اپنی پارٹی تشکیل دی، اور کس طرح لوگوں کو بتایا کہ جی یہ اس ایگریمنٹ کا کیا نقصان ہے، اور انہوں نے جو ایک موو چلائی، اور ایوب خان اس میں بہت کمزور ہو گئے، اور اس کے بعد جو ہے وہ 1962 کا کانسٹیٹیوشن جو ایوب کے ذریعے ملا تھا اس کا خاتمہ کس طرح ہوا، اور پھر ایوب خان کی حکومت کا خاتمہ کس طرح ہوا. تو اس وقت ہم جو ہے وہ جنرل جو ہے اسٹڈی دیکھ رہے ہیں، کر رہے ہیں پاکستان کی. ہم پاکستان گورنمنٹ اینڈ سوسائٹی ان پاکستان میں ان ڈیٹیل پاکستان کی موجودہ ایجوکیشن نظام، ہیلتھ نظام، کلچر، ٹریڈیشنز، سوسائٹی کی اسٹرکچر اور سوشل اسٹرکچر، ان سب چیزوں کو دیکھیں گے. لیکن بریفلی جو ہے وہ ہسٹری کو جاننا بھی ضروری ہے، تو ہم اس وقت جو ہے وہ ہسٹری کا جائزہ لے رہے ہیں. ہوپفلی کہ آپ کو اس میں اس کو سمجھنے میں مشکل نہیں ہوگی. اس پر بہت سارا لٹریچر دستیاب بھی ہے، میں بھی آپ کو لٹریچر بھیج دوں گا، تو